Right, boom, we're back. Squeeze the Neck podcast today. Guess where we are? Clues on the wall. Ray Stevens Academy, New Malden. With, I was going to say my judo coach, but I think I'll probably give you a better instruction than that. So, Olympic silver medalist in judo. Yeah, and my judo coach, Ray Stevens. Thank you very much for doing this, man.
Cheers, Ollie. My pleasure.
So, as I touched on there, started doing judo recently with you, which, you know, I've got a background in Jiu Jitsu, and my plan was to sort of maybe do a couple of sessions with you and then just jump into judo classes and get on with it. But it came clear pretty quickly that I'll probably stick with this and learn judo from you more often, and now you can't get rid of me, so you're stuck with me.
Well, you know, the judo, I always say, is a little bit, the stand-up is always takes a little bit longer to learn than the floor work. And the floor work, you can pick it up, you know, step by step, but there's a lot of nuances with the tachiwaza, with the standing in judo.
So what I'm really enjoying, before we won't stick on me too long, we will get to some of your judo stuff because apparently he's done a bit, but like what I really noticed about the teaching of it is my benefit of having a background in it is I'm not rushing to sort of just grab people and throw people, and I've got the benefit of yourself, so I can learn, and that's why I'm enjoying it, and hopefully I'm going to stick with it as long as this vessel will keep me going. Do you know what I mean?
Well, the thing is, you're going about it the right way, not rushing, and actually trying to really learn the fundamentals. I think that's really important, that you don't just sort of, you know, it's not easy to throw people. They're trying to stop you, and the devil is in the detail. If you break the techniques down, you get the fundamentals in the beginning, and that'll carry you through. Because otherwise, once you get those bad habits, as I've spoken to you about in the classes, it's very hard to undo them later on. Yeah. It's in your muscle memory.
Right. Well, yeah. You've got a really great way of teaching as well. Aside from being obviously an elite level judo player yourself in your day, this is like the way of training. I said to you after our first session, or I think during our second session, after our first one, I was sparring boxing later that day, and I felt what I'd learned in judo, even though it's completely unrelated to boxing, it helps my boxing. Yeah.
Absolutely, because it's an athletic sport, right? And there's no different. Boxing, it's similar. You know, you need balance, coordination, and this. And I always go on about this relaxation. You know, you've got to be athletic. If you're stiff, you can't move properly, and that's across the board with all the sports, isn't it?
Yeah, it is, and I've took that with me in all my training, whether it's lifting or I do handstands and things like that. So whatever I'm doing, that sort of principle of doing it the right way, even though it sounds stupidly simple the way I'm putting it, but it's like that has kind of carried over, I feel like, to everything I'm doing. I'm trying not to force things, I'm trying not to rush things, and just like everything, like back of my mind, I've got your voice and thinking to myself, what would Ray tell me? You know what I mean?
Well, I'm glad to hear that. I think, and I think you will improve more quickly having that attitude as well. And like you said, if you can apply it to your other skills that you're, you know, with your boxing and all the other things you're doing, your wrestling, I think it'll be advantageous for you for sure.
Nice. Yeah. Well, let's hope so, man, because I can't be useless forever. You know what I mean? I got to find some skills somewhere. But aside from me, mate, let's go back a little bit, because I'll talk a little bit about, like, obviously judo silver medalist at the Olympics in '92 Barcelona.
Yeah.
So you're also a fifth degree. Yeah, a few moons ago now. Yeah. But you're also a fifth degree black belt in Jiu Jitsu.
Yes.
You can grapple. You can grapple a bit.
Yeah. The interesting thing for me was I got into the BJJ when I retired from competitive judo, which was in 1996 after the Atlanta Olympics. But I really enjoyed groundwork in judo. But in judo, the technique has to happen very quickly. There has to be a quick sort of transition from standing to ground, and the technique has to happen very quickly. Hold downs, arm locks and strangles, and then they stand you back up again. But I really enjoyed groundwork, and a lot of judokas don't like it. And I think this is a mistake. Now, of course, it's changing, and it's always depending on the rules. Now they're allowing more time on the ground. But I've always enjoyed that groundwork element, and it just I've won a lot of matches. You know, I've may have been down on scores. You know, maybe like a Yuko Wazari, and then suddenly you find a way to win on the ground because the other guy was not training so much on the ground. So it was a natural progression for me to get into Brazilian Jiu Jitsu, and I was extremely lucky to. Have met sort of Roger Gracie and Maurizio all those years ago, and that's when Maurizio asked me if I could help Roger, and then we basically did an exchange. So Roger was helping me with my Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and I was helping him with a stand-up, because he had no stand-up at all when I met him. Right. So Maurizio said, please help him with the standing. The first thing I did was made him stand tall. He's 6'5", and very athletic. But when I first met him, all he did was a single leg grab, you know, and he used to bend over a lot. So the first thing I taught him was to have good posture, like we've been talking about in our classes. And from then, and using his levers, long legs, long arms, and controlling his opponents that way. And he picked it up very quickly. He trained a lot at the Budokai in my classes. So, yeah.
Well, I bet that was interesting. Did he come in for a judo class with a white belt on for people?
He did in the early days, but it didn't take long for them to...
People might realise he's not.
Yeah, especially when he did the floor work with it. It's like, he's not a white belt. No, but he progressed really quickly, picked the techniques up, you know, he was diligent with his training, and he put in the time. And yeah, they were really great times, I have to say. I learned so much, and of course a lot of the techniques that I learned from Brazilian Jiu Jitsu, you couldn't do a lot of them in judo tournaments because you wouldn't have the time to do them, but it's just those fundamentals.
Right. Well, I'll tell you one thing, Ronda Rousey back in the day, I think she was speaking about how she saw Jiu Jitsu and judo as essentially the same sport with just a different emphasis. Would you agree with that?
I totally agree.
Yeah.
It's the rules that are different,
right.
You know. And as I said, in judo, that transition has to be quick and immediate, whereas in BJJ, you can take a lot longer. You know, you get your grip in, but a little bit further. And in judo, you'd be back up on your feet again. So,
what's the rules in judo with that? Is that like you've got time on the floor and they stand you back up?
Yeah. Once you hit the deck, there's got to be progression. It can't be that sort of cat and mouse thing for too long, where you just sort of and stalling. You can't. So if it breaks down for like a second or two, then back up on your feet, start again. Okay,
because you've lived through obviously like the judo rule change, right? I'm not too familiar with it.
Well, they
grabbing the legs in terms of like the big one, right?
Well, when I was competing, you were allowed to attack the legs, and you know, I enjoyed that aspect. I think I preferred the old rules. I know I'm a bit old school, but I do prefer those old rules. For me, the contrast when you had a top Japanese fighter, a classical Japanese fighter, upright posture, fighting another opponent from Russia or Soviet Union, where they were sort of more had that wrestling background as well, sambo, and the contrast of those styles, where those guys were doing, the Russian guys doing these incredible pickups, you know, from all different angles, Teguruma, you know, all these other, you know, flying jujigatamis and stuff that they've banned from judo now, which is a shame, I think. But I think the leg grabs, I was never a fan of the double leg grab, which is like a rugby tackle, but all of the other ones, if you'd stay on your feet, I think they're good, and it's a shame they've taken it out.
And what's the thinking in taking it out? Is it more for action at the top level?
Yeah, I think they just felt that it looked better on TV and more interesting. Yeah, I mean, it was probably for that reason.
Yeah, it's interesting how things go, because like obviously in wrestling at the Olympics, you've got Greco and freestyle, so there's in and out with the legs, right? They could almost, I mean, maybe not, but could they do something like that with judo? Could they have like an up and down pattern?
I'd like to think so, but I think that you know, every year with judo, it's a little bit different. They seem to change the rules. There's always a new, in Paris tournament, the Grand Slam, they normally bring out a couple of different rule changes. So it's always quite difficult to keep up with it, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
But the main one, they've still stuck by the no leg grabs at the moment, and they're trying to encourage people to, you know, be very dynamic, coming for big throws, rather than sort of playing it safe and just going for a leg grab and to stall. You know, so the guys were using it as a stalling technique, or they do sort of like a kategori where they drop on their knees. To sort of, it was an attack, but they were just sort of, you know, it was a tactical thing.
Right.
And I think that they didn't like that, so they wanted to do away with that and encourage big, you know, get your hands on the gis, not breaking grips all the time, and actually see big throws.
Right. Okay. So
for the spectators.
It makes sense, doesn't it? Because some of the things, like one of the gripes I've got with jiu-jitsu tournaments, which is why I haven't competed an awful lot with sport jiu-jitsu, is because there's a lot of sort of points playing, right? And it's a bit like, it doesn't really, to me, for a fight, if you look at it that way, it's like...
From a spectator point of view, I mean, it's okay, isn't it, for the guys who know what's going on. Other jiu-jitsu people, they know what's happening, it's interesting for them, but if you don't really know much about jiu-jitsu, and maybe this is one of the problems that people saying about jiu-jitsu being in the Olympics, and maybe that's one of the reasons that it's not able to, you know, they've not put it in there, but... when it breaks down and it sort of slows down, there's not a lot going on. It becomes a bit boring.
Oh, even if you do know what you're looking at, it's boring, right? Like try and watch a Jiu Jitsu match with guys that are very well matched. It's kind of a bit like
it's a bit like in the 0-0 in football. You know,
it is,
the two teams are really close together.
Yeah.
And nobody's scoring any goals.
Right.
Yeah, so
no good here. Score some goals, guys. Go out there and score some goals. But let's go back a bit, Ray. Like, where are you from originally, and how did you get into judo?
Yeah, so I'm originally from High Wycombe, which is in Buckinghamshire.
Yeah.
And that's where I started judo at the age of 10. And I was from a council estate in Mickerfield, which is where my parents where I was brought up with my family. And I just, luckily, I mean, it was just literally 100 yards away, this club. It was the Polish club in Mickerfield Estate. And my father, who really wanted me to box, said, look, you know, you can do the boxing later on, but go and start doing a bit of judo down there. It'll keep you fit, keep you out of trouble. And that was really the beginning of a long journey. I had no idea. I always still had my heart set on doing some boxing because I loved boxing. I was watching all those fights, you know, those classic fights in those days with Muhammad Ali and Frazier and all those incredible fights with Thomas Hearns and Sugar Ray Leonard and all those guys, and I loved it. But I just sort of started the judo and then started winning medals, you know, very young, and just, you know, just sort of progressing. And then before I knew it, at the age of 16, I was a black belt, adult black belt, beating adults, and I did it in the lineup. So you know you can win it on the day if you beat 5 opponents by ippon, the knockout. So I did that when I was 16, so I was already a black belt, and then I did the same thing again when I was 17. I did another lineup. I got my second down, which is the one up from black, and that's when then I was on the national team representing Great Britain. So I was on my way, and then even though in my mind I was thinking, well, I could always go back to boxing, but it just didn't quite materialise.
There's still time, Ray, right?
At the age of 62,
we're still waiting. We're still waiting for your boxing career to kick in.
Yeah.
So the judo thing obviously just got out of hand. And you
I got carried away with the
exactly.
judo, but I still love boxing.
Right, but was you? I mean, it sounds like a silly question off the back of what you just said, but I'm assuming you was good at judo straight away. It was just a talented thing.
I mean, I'd like to think I had some natural ability, but again, it's like any sport, any endeavor. I think I was putting in the time, you know, and I enjoyed the training. I enjoyed learning new techniques, right. And then it just, and that physicality of the grappling. I like combat.
Right.
I just, you know, and I was brought up that way. You know, my father, you know, he was old school. My father was from Merthyr Tydfil in Wales.
Okay.
And that's where he did his boxing with Howard Winstone, who was a former world champion, and with Eddie Thomas. And he did a lot of boxing, and his eyesight went. So he kind of put all his energy into me and sort of pushing me to sort of do either, you know, some sort of sport, you know. And I liked a lot of sports. I mean, I loved boxing, but I also loved playing ball sports. I loved football and tennis. I played a lot of tennis. Right. And so I sort of sport for choice in a way, but I remember I was having some tennis lessons and my dad said to me, look, you know, the guy's saying you could be really good at tennis, you know, but you're at the age now, you've got to specialize in something. You know, you've got boxing you could do, but, you know, you've got judo, you've got tennis. But I just felt I'd just gone that far in the judo, and I liked the guys that I was training with, and that was me sort of on that pathway.
Well, it's interesting that where you said you played a lot of different sports. I'm a big believer in that. It's a bit sort of Soviet style, isn't it? Like they put you in a lot of things before you specialise.
Gymnastics, I did gymnastics as well. Okay. A bit trampolining, table tennis, and I think that helps to develop your coordination. Yeah. You know, definitely.
I think you can specialise too early, right? You can over-specialise.
I think so. Yeah. I think so. You know, but of course I was doing more judo than anything else. But I just loved. Yeah, I'd be outside for hours kicking the football up and down. You know, and playing soccer with my local friends.
Yeah, that's cool, because like with judo, it's quite like, judo is one of them sports that I feel like when I was growing up, everyone knows what judo is, right? It's not like a Jiu Jitsu, for example. When I was a kid, no one would have known what it was, right? You'd have kind of whatever. But karate and judo was sort of like, they were common that everyone knew it, but not common enough that many people did it. Do you see where I'm coming from?
Yes.
So did you have like friends outside of judo that was doing judo? Sorry, outside of judo. Your friends that were just your friends before you did judo?
I sort of not really. I've met most of my friends through the judo.
Right.
But I think you know, doing these, you know, these other sports really helped me to be coordinated for the judo. I just, that made a big difference to me. Yeah, definitely. I've lost my track. I've lost my train.
That's all right. I asked you about different sports and stuff, and your friends outside of judo.
Well, yeah, it's a good question. I didn't really have that many friends outside of judo.
Right.
Just the local lads around
yeah.
my council estate, really. But you know, from that young age, I was sort of going into little tournaments. You know, sort of traveling around. You know, sort of. From the age of about 10 to let's say about sort of 12, I was in this local club, and then from 12 to 16, I moved to the club that was in High Wycombe Town, which is called the Verroy Judo Club, and that was in an Irish club, like a pub there. They used to put the mats down every night. So I started in the Polish club, under the BJC, which is the British Judo Council, and then I realised if you wanted to represent Great Britain, you know, you had to be in the BJA, the British Judo Association. So I moved to the other club in High Wycombe Town Centre. So from the age of sort of about 12 to 16, I was there, and we were going to lots of competitions all around the country, and then it's from that age, then around 16, I sort of kind of outgrew it a little bit. My father said, "Listen, if you want to progress, and you want to, you know, you've got to go where all the other Olympic guys have been previously, Brian Jacks, Neil Adams, all these top guys before me, and it was at the Budokai." So he said, I'm dropping you off in London. That's where you've got to be. And he literally drove me up to London, and that was it. Let me get on with it. He'd spoken to, on my behalf, unbeknown to me, to Neil Adams, who was a few years older than me, who was a phenomenal judo player, and you know, I think at that time, I think he just won the World Championships around that time. Yes, it would have been around 17, I would have about 17. And I started training full time with him. Right. And we were training for probably about 6 years, day in, day out, you know, every day.
Wow.
We were training, and that was fantastic for me.
And was he, you said he's a bit older than you, was he a grown man at this point? He was like the guy?
Yeah, he would have, you know, I'm 17, I think he's about 4 or 5 years older than me.
Big difference at that age, isn't it?
Yeah, but he was sort of, he had his system of training, so I learned a lot. And also it benefited him a lot because he needed a training partner who was going to be there every day. I think he burned through a load of training partners. Right. And they were turning up late for training, but I was just religious. I was there every day. And I, you know, in the beginning, I found it really tough because it was different type of training. He was used to it, and I wasn't. But I quickly got up to speed, and we were pushing each other on a daily basis. So we would do our sort of technical training on the, you know, like all the movement practice, what with the uchikomi we call it, which is where the repetition, and we would do our physical training, with our weights and our circuit training. We'd be running around the track doing you know, sprints and all this sort of stuff. So, and then in the evenings we would do our sparring, our randori. Right. So it's pretty, you know, and of course I was also having to finance this. So I was working on building sites and stuff. So I mean, I was absolutely exhausted, to be honest. I was probably overdoing it. I was definitely overdoing it. But you know, in those days you didn't really have the lottery funding like we, you know, do now. So we got a tiny little Sports Aid Foundation grant that you couldn't survive on.
When are we talking now? Are we talking sort of 80s, early 80s?
Yeah. So I was, you know, having to supplement. I was doing a little bit of personal training, fitness training back then in the health club, working on the building sites, and then doing all these other hours of training. It was pretty full on.
And what's the weight between you and Neil Adams? Was it similar?
We crossed over. I mean, I was, as I said, younger than him, but I was the number one in the country for my age. But I sort of, even though I was young for adults then, I was number two to him for a short time when I was under 78. But it was a very brief time that I was there, and that's why he agreed to me training him. He knew I was taller and bigger.
You was going to get it right.
I was going up into the next weight category, which was under 86 kilos back then. Okay. They've changed the weight categories now. And then, of course, later on, I moved up to under 95 kilograms. Right, even though I wasn't naturally that weight, I was naturally 90 kilos. Right. Even when I fought in Barcelona, I weighed in at 90 kilos. And there's quite a big difference between under 86 and under 95. Huge. So the guys that I fought were invariably they were taller and naturally bigger than me. Right. And sort of dropping down to 95. So I'm trying to push to keep my weight up to 90. But under 86 was difficult to get down to. So Yeah, so now they've changed those weight categories.
Yeah.
They have an under 90 kilo category now, which would have been perfect.
That'd be perfect for you,
Yeah,
right?
would
Right.
have been, yeah.
It's funny when you go back because, like, back in the day, from people I spoke to, it seems like they either across various combat arts, it's either the camp of cut loads of weight and really kill yourself, or now I'm not bothering, I'm just going to stay what weight I am. Was there a bit of that going on?
Definitely. I wasn't very good with cutting weight, and I didn't really enjoy that. I did it just for a little while. I'd always, if I was a couple of kilos over the weight, and I was because there wasn't any body fat on you in those days.
Right.
Excuse me. So I'd always prefer to push up to even give the weight away and just be my natural weight.
Yeah, right.
So I moved up through the weight categories quite quickly.
Right, because 95 kilos, like for anyone who doesn't, like 95 kilos is quite big anyway.
15 stone.
Right, but for an athlete who's cutting to 95, if you over that, like these are big men, aren't they? Do you know what I mean? This is proper lumps you come up against.
These guys are, this is what it was quite interesting because when I was at sort of younger, 71 kilos, moving up to 70, I was quite tall at the weight.
Right.
So I was doing sort of techniques that I could do against guys similar height and shorter. And of course, when I was fighting under 95, like the guy that I fought in the Olympic final was 6'7".
6'7"?
Yeah, and
wow.
Antal Kovacs from Hungary. And he was right at the top of the weight and coming down from, from probably around 100 kilos at least, boom. And, it does make a difference.
Well, 6'7"'s a problem, isn't it? Jesus Christ.
So I having to learn then sort of small man judo.
Right. Okay.
So, but when I was younger, my style was more sort of taller judo. Sort of using my legs a lot more, and then I sort of developed other throws for the bigger guys.
Yeah. And so 92, you go to the Olympics and get the silver. Was that your first Olympics?
It was my first Olympics.
Right.
I was I was injured for some of the other ones. As I said, I overtrained and I got injured my ankles badly, and of course in Barcelona, I it's common knowledge. I mean, I competed in Barcelona with a completely torn anterior cruciate, which was not ideal preparation, and that was just to get there was a feat in itself, and I was very lucky that it just held out. I couldn't do, the problem was I couldn't do the sparring that I wanted to do before competing. So I had to back off the sparring, do all the other training, and then just sort of is very much in the lap of the gods on the day.
Right.
And fortunately it worked out. And then of course, after that, when I got through all those fights, miraculously, I don't know how, I still don't know how that happened, but I just had the operation when I came back to repair it.
Right, that's mad, isn't it? You went through the Olympics with a torn ACL and just
totally
what's that?
unstable.
Grunted through it and just got on with it.
I think I was lucky in one respect that it was my right knee, and a lot of the techniques that I do, you're driving off the left leg,
right?
Because I'm a right-handed player, even though I do attack left-handed as well. But somehow I just managed to get, I don't know how, I just was attacking a lot with my Ochigari, Soto, Uchima, these type of techniques, and avoiding putting too much weight on the right leg.
Right.
But I can't say I wasn't nervous going out there. That's
right,
for sure.
I bet, right. Anyway, even if you had two great legs, right, you're in a situation there. But like, how old was you when you went to this Olympics?
29, literally to the day. Yeah.
So you're like sort of peak years, right?
Yeah.
You're sort of at the peak of your powers and stuff like that. But like injuries aside, if we go back a little bit before we come on to the Olympics, like what's the training like getting up to an Olympic Games for you? Because like I'm talking like obviously you're doing a lot of judo, but then like the physical training around it, all that kind of business. Yeah,
as I said, I think I alluded to earlier on that, because we didn't have a system like you do in Japan where you've got hundreds of guys on the mat and just partner. We had to create our own system. So Neil Adams and I would train, as I said, most days, 6 days a week we were training together, 5 hours a day.
Right.
And that consisted of the technical training and the physical training, which would incorporate, all that sort of running, that sort of circuit training, flexibility training, shuttle sprints, track work. It was exhausting.
Right.
But the other reason we had to do it that way was because we had to make ourselves sufficiently tired So in the daytime, so that when we went to do the sparring in the evenings, which is when all the sessions were on then, because back then we didn't really have full-time training centres like we do now. So we would then go on the mat in the evenings against the club players. Some of them are obviously good club players, but we had to handicap our physicality so that we'd make it more of a level playing field. So we were already knackered, they were fresh, and that way we could sort of get the best out of the training.
And are they looking at you like you and Neil are the two top dogs? Are people sort of like, right, tonight I'm gonna have a go with Ray?
Yeah. Oh yeah, no, definitely. They they're up for it because for them, of course, that's their Olympics.
That's what I'm getting at.
When they're training in the club and they want to manage to catch you, it's like, oh God, I caught him. For us, it was a means to an end. It was just for us. It was this was part of our preparation. And we had to just find the best way for us. The other way that we also managed to get the sparring was when you go to these big events, more often than not, you'd have the training camps after it.
Oh,
so sort of through it, like Paris, for example, you go and do the Paris tournament, then you have about 4 or 5 days, there'd be a training camp after it, where you got to train with all the other high-level competitors, and you could train with the guys in the weight below. Of course, with the guys in your own weight, if you didn't want to avoid them, which sometimes you'd want to avoid them, or sometimes you want to test them out, and then the guys in the weight above. So that's where we got a lot of our high-level sparring.
Yeah. And how does it work in judo? Are you able to sort of go and train in Japan and stuff like that and do all that kind of business?
Yeah. I mean, I was very fortunate. The Budokai sent me there when they subsidised my trip out there when I was in my early 20s. At my first time I went there, and I sort of was also invited by Kashiwazaki, who was he was a Japanese world champion under 65 kilograms. He invited me over there to his, where he in Katsura, which is just outside of Tokyo, and that was a baptism of fire because I was on my own, literally fitting in with it, and just flying out there took forever because I was on a really cheap ticket. It took me forever to get via Manila, Bangkok, and Cairo, and eventually I got there. And I never forget arriving absolutely knackered, and then it was a 2-hour drive to the dojo, and then I got there, and Sensei Kashiwazaki said to me, "Oh Ray, you're in time for the randori. Go and get changed," and I was like, 3 hours of judo, literally
3 hours.
3 hours of sparring after that straight away. Right. That was my first, and and then the following morning, 6 o'clock in the morning, you're up doing, all the carrying guys up, the stairs and all that sort of stuff. So you do an hour of physical training in the morning, and that would just be repeat, early morning training, afternoon sparring. That's the sort of thing. I did about several weeks there, which was very, what's the word? It was just sort of really hard. It was a hard process for me, but it helped me a lot later on. I didn't realise at the time, but it did.
Sorry. Now, what's the sort? How are you received there? Are you sort of looked at as an outsider, or are you like, come train with us?
I think because the head instructor, had come to London, spent a year, and he knew what it was like here in London, and I think he obviously introduced me. We got somebody from the UK. He's coming here to train, and he's sort of, I think he wanted to give me that experience. This is how we train in Japan.
Right.
And it was tough, I mean, you literally, as I said, it's a 3-hour session, but there are times you just they put a red belt on you have to go out, and you'll be out there for 8 5-minute practices. So at the end of 5 minutes, they just bang the drum, and another guy would come out to you, another guy. So they're coming out fresh, but you're getting more and more tired. And of course, they want to let you know that they're on the end of your arms, and but after the 4th or 5th practice, you almost can't stand up. You're just being thrown over and over again. And then you're expected, once you've done your 8 5-minute practices, which when you're absolutely exhausted, you have a brief rest, then you're expected to go out to the other guys when they got their red belts on. So you'd have something in the region of sort of 25, 30 practices, of very high quality. And that's when I realized that the training I was doing at home is very different. I just could never replicate that back home. But it was just, yes, it was a learning experience for sure.
Did you ever think about, I'm just going to go and move to Japan and just do this all the time?
Yeah, I think there are guys that have done that. I mean, I know Brian Jacks, when he was very young, went out there for a year or two, and it worked for him. I don't know whether it would have suited me to have been there the whole time, because you can become a bit institutionalized, maybe. And I just wanted to retain that sort of, because I did go back to Japan later, subsequently. So yeah, I went there later, and with the British team, we'd go out to Japan for a block of training, or maybe there was a tournament, and we'd spend but as part of the British judo team.
Because it's interesting.
Different experience.
I was going to say, it's interesting when you say that. That's got to be a different experience, right? Because like you're going as a solo, and then you're part of the team. So
but I'm really glad I did the solo thing.
Right.
And I just remember, Kashiwazaki, I think he really wanted to give me that experience, and it was like, it was so memorable for me. It was just because I learned a lot about the psychology of how the Japanese are. So for example, when I got there, it was winter time, and he said, Ray, you missed the winter training. I said, well, what do you mean? He said, well, we always go into the sea and we just stay in there and go swimming for a while, but you've missed it. I said, well, that's fine, don't worry. He said, no, I'm going to personally take you down myself. And honestly, it was freezing cold. I mean, it was so cold because the weather's, it's similar to what we have in the UK, but even colder back then. And I just remember him driving me down to the edge of the sea, and I'm looking at him thinking, are you going to go through with this? And yeah, of course we are. And so people looking out the windows, thinking, what are these guys doing? So off we go, strip all into our costumes, and in we go. And it just took my breath away. I remember thinking, what is this all about? Why is he doing this? And because I was quite competitive, because he was only 65 kilos, I was a bit bigger than him. So we take off our gear, in we go, and it's freezing, So start swimming around a bit, and literally dipped it. He said, "Oh, wrestling, come out now." And I thought, because of the way I was as well, I said, "No, we can stay in for a bit longer." And I started swimming around. I wanted to psych him a little bit, And I think he admired me for doing it, because he wouldn't come out before I came out, because that's the Japanese way. They never give up. Yeah. So I kept him in there for a bit. So then we eventually come out, and we're both shivering, and he said to me, Rei-san, we go now back to the dojo, and we're going to have a hot bath, Japanese bath. But when we go back to near the dojo, we're going to go through the gym, and the students will be there. When we are going through the gym, we must be serious. And I thought, okay. So we're in the car driving back, having a bit of a laugh and a joke about how cold it was. And then we get there, and he's the sensei, he's the teacher. So he had, very serious. So me and him were very serious, walk through the gym, just looking at the guys lifting their weights. And then we go into the Japanese bath, just me and him, close the door, laughing and joking again. So this is their mentality. And it was interesting talking to him. He'd say things like, Ray, it's very important that whatever you do it to the maximum. So if you go for a drink, you drink a lot. You don't just drink a little bit, because you're doing it to the maximum. Right. So if you train to the maximum. This is you don't half do things. You're either doing it or you're not doing it. Right. And that's sort of these things that are little things that are you kind of in my mind. I sort of remember those later on. A tough experience, but definitely worthwhile for me.
I like that. There's something about that. I mean, it's going to change how I come in the dojo next time I come and train with you. I'm going to be serious, bowing and no jokes.
We're different in Europe, it is different, but I think that's the Japanese way. It's just, it's the samurai.
Yeah, right. And when you go from this to sort of an Olympics, obviously you take a lot from the training and whatnot there, but when you go to the Olympics, is the goal to win the gold? Absolutely,
100%. I think in my situation, I knew I had this bad injury, and to get there was a huge achievement under the circumstances. I had to fight the fights to get there, prove myself over and over again, even though I'd qualified, I'd had all the Olympic gear and everything. They were trying to sort of force me to go into tournaments, which they did, to prove myself again. And there was one particular competition, it was the Southern Area Championships, I'll never forget it was at Crystal Palace. I'd already been selected, I got all my gear. Ray, you've got to go and fight in this tournament. It's only the Southern Area Championships. I got there, everyone in my weight in Great Britain was there, because they'd been told you've got a chance of going, because they knew I had the injury issue.
Oof. Okay.
So I went there and I just thought, I was surprised when I got there who was there. And I thought, oh, I realized what was going on. I just thought, I've got to win today. Somehow, even though my knee was really bad, I knew I had to win. I just took every one of them down into Nerwas and ground and beat them on the ground. But I was limping out of the stadium, right? I'm thinking, oh. So I knew after that I just had to nurse that injury the best I could, strengthen my muscles to protect that,
Right.
and then do all the other training, the repetition stuff, all that, but no sparring for months before, and just then go out there and leave it out on the mat. Don't leave just everything out on the mat. And also I just felt that there would be a high probability that I'd come off, they'd have to carry him out of the stadium. But then I thought that you don't want to die wondering. I just thought you just give it your absolute all, and you can't do any more than that, and that's the mindset I had.
Willing to give it everything.
Absolutely
for
everything, and with a high probability I'd be coming off there on a stretcher and going,
Right.
straight to the hospital. Yeah.
Right, yeah, mad situation to be in, isn't it? It's like,
Well,
this is what you do with your life.
The crazy thing was that evening after I'd won my medal, a few of my mates were the weightlifters, and they wanted to celebrate with me, and we're going to have a couple of drinks, and one of them grabbed hold of me and started messing about. And I slipped, and my knee gave way, and I was lying on the pavement thinking, how did I do what I did earlier on in the day?
Yeah.
I can't even stand up messing around with my mate who's a weightlifter. He just grabbed me and knee gave way.
Crazy, isn't it? How
So
things work out.
it's just bizarre, isn't it?
Yeah, but with you, how many matches did you have to get to the final?
All the fights were on one day. I think I had about 6 fights.
So it's extreme, isn't it? Like for a day when you got an injury like that.
Very, very intense.
Yeah, and like when you get to the final, it's again a bit of a silly question here, but what sort of state are you in?
You're going to win. I was absolutely convinced in my mind that I was going to win.
Right. Okay.
And I just felt that I don't know why. I just thought, I'm going to win this. I felt good. There was quite a long delay between, the semi-finals and the finals. And the fight I had in the semi-finals was a really tough one against Pavel Nastula, who won the Olympics in Atlanta the following time. And I beat him in the semi-finals. That was a tough fight. And then there's a good delay. I can't remember how long, but it seemed like an eternity. And I did know, I went to try and win. I just went for it. And to be honest with you, I was dominating the match for the first 3 minutes, the 5-minute contest. And then, I nearly arm locked him, literally within the first sort of minute. And if I'd known what I know now through BJJ, I would have arm locked him. Right. I made a bit of a mistake. He was so tall, and I was leveraging his arm towards his head. He managed to do a backward roll out of it. Now I would have taken his arm out the other way. Anyway, history. But it just, I got, that far, and he managed to escape, and I was dominating the fight, but then there was nothing in the tank.
Right.
After about 3.5 minutes, my body was completely drained of energy, and I just sort of hung in there, and he managed to get a score, a minor score near, towards the end of the fight, and I just couldn't get it back. But, so it's a weird feeling when you're in an Olympic final, and you come off that, out of quite quickly from the mat, you're fairly quickly onto the rostrum. So you have these mixed feelings that, yes, I've got a medal, but I lost the gold. It was that close. But then, when I had time to think about it, of course, all the problems I had, I've got to be happy with a silver medal.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you. Like, silver medals are obviously a ridiculous achievement in itself, but like, did you see it like you lost the gold, or was you?
Yeah, I think even if you asked Neil Adams, I know a good friend of mine, he lost 2 Olympic finals.
Did he? Yeah. 2? I know he lost one. Yeah.
So, that's what Neil was saying.
Right.
I lost 2 Olympic finals, but what an achievement to get there. It's nothing in it at that level. And if you fought that same tournament the day after, it could be a completely different set of results, So you've got to look at the bigger picture. And had somebody said to me, especially when I couldn't do any I mean, just literally was giving way. And I remember training with this huge Lenox Hill brace, and even with all the metal around it was still feeling weak and giving way. And I just thought, how am I going to do this? You know. So if somebody said to me, would you take a silver medal? Yeah, absolutely. I would have taken it there and then. So, yeah, mixed feelings, but I've got to be very grateful and very proud of what I did under those circumstances. Because I was very tenacious and just nothing was, RoboCop. I was just, I'm still going in that direction.
Well, that's another thing that comes to my mind is a lot of people in that situation would have gone, nah, I won't go to this Olympics, right? A lot of people would have pulled out if you're that banged up.
I think so. It's just that mentality of just never say die, just never quit. And just take it to the limit. So you've done your best, and you can live with yourself, right? If you've tried your best and you've done your best, then want to have that feeling like I could have, left it out there. I didn't quite do, and
Yeah, well, I mean, I feel there's definitely something beautiful. Not that you lost, you got a silver medal. This is not the best example, but like there's some beauty in going out there and really trying and coming up short anyway, right? Like if you've really tried and emptied the tank versus, like you say, like we all know people that I coulda, woulda, shoulda, right? Like, they're in the pub and they could have been a pro footballer, they could have been a tennis player. You didn't know.
I was a contender.
Do you know what I mean?
I was a contender.
Do you know what I mean? You didn't know, you know what I mean? Whereas like to go out there, which you obviously got to the final, but like even if you'd lost your first round match, like to get there, like you say, and really genuinely try, I think there's a lot to that, isn't there? You know what I mean? With hindsight, when you look back on it, yes. I mean, at the time, because I think what it is, you invest so much of your time and effort into what your passion, and it just becomes obsessional. So you want payback, right? Yeah.
And you put that in, you want to get that out, and I think that's what it is. So I'm very fortunate because I know a lot of my teammates who are great judokas. The Olympics, the same Olympics, phenomenal guys, and they didn't win a medal, but they're still great judo guys. And on any other given day, they may have won the medal, and I might not have won the medal.
Yeah, right.
So, and that's the way it goes. So
the format of like having to do it all in one day, that leaves a lot of wiggle room too, right? Because for example, if you've had all hard matches and the opponent across has had like a lot of quick ones,
the draw makes a big difference,
doesn't it?
It does make a difference. But again, I think when you go to that level, you just got to think, whoever's in front of me, he's my opponent. I can't fight all of them at the same time. Concentrate on this guy, work out the tactics that you need and how you're going to win, strengths and weaknesses, and go about it that way.
Because like at that level, you tell me, I'm assuming like from when I spoke to a lot of other guys that compete at elite levels of various combat arts, and particularly combat arts compared to other sports, there's like the mind plays a big part, right? Because at the top level, the technique, the physicality, it's close, isn't it, right?
Yeah, very much so. And I think that's the thing that separates the winners out from the losers. Is you've got to go in there with a positive mental attitude, but I think that comes about in your training. It's not just on the day you have that. You're building that up in your training sessions.
Right.
Mentally, you're toughening yourself up. The mentally toughening thing is so important. I remember even in the past, people saying, God, it's strange. Outside of the judo, I was always trying to push myself, make myself do things I didn't feel comfortable with to keep mentally tough. And it's sort of, I think that carries over. One of the things I found I had to really work on was sort of trying to keep myself calm, to keep in that optimum zone, because you can be over psyched up, you can be under psyched up, and finding the level that was good for me. So I often had to calm myself down. I know other guys that would be quite relaxed, who would need a bit of a kick up the backside, and it was different for them. But for me, I always had that feeling, I was energized. I almost want it too much. I had to sort of, no, calm down, relax, keep your energy, store your energy up for when you need it. Don't expend that energy. I learned that early on. I was expending too much energy too early on before even getting out there. Right. And you got all those opponents to fight, and you're like your own worst enemy. You're fighting yourself.
Right. Because you've tired yourself out.
You've exhausted yourself. Yeah. You're fighting yourself before you go and fight those guys.
Yeah. Right. And like coming back from the Olympics, I'm assuming you had to have an operation on the knee, right, to get that back.
Well, I've had two anterior cruciate repairs on the left knee and 2 on the right knee.
Okay. Oh wow.
So,
They've been through it. Them
I've-
knees. Them
my,
knees
both
felt
my
it.
knees, you're wondering why I keep moving my legs
Yeah,
around,
right.
because my legs are so stiff. So basically I don't have cartilages in either of these.
That's
knees.
crazy, yeah. Because I wouldn't. I mean, you've told me you've had knee injections and stuff before, but like when we're training, like you move like a cat still. Do you know what I mean? Like, I wouldn't know.
I know. So I do get these regular injections, which is supposed to like lubricate the knees. One day probably, distant future, I'm going to have to have replacements, but I'll put that off as long as possible. I'm hoping that they'll come out with some great injections that grow your cartilages, which I'm hearing about now. But I you know, even like I don't, you know, about 90 degrees, but I can't fully bend my knees.
Right.
They get stiff, you know. But I can, I can still move around the mat.
Yeah.
I still, you don't forget that.
Yeah, but also like even just you're 62, you said.
I'm 62.
Now a lot of people at 62, they've got bad knees and hobble over anyway, and they've never done anything, right? So it's like I'd say you're ahead of the game as it is, right? You're still flowing around. You still spar and stuff, right? You still roll.
Well, I've not so much these days. I mean, I wish I could. I'm just, to be honest with you, I'm very nervous. I don't do standing randori. Sparring is too risky. And even on the ground now, I'm a little bit nervous because if my leg gets caught in the wrong way, and then, you know, I can't teach.
Right.
So my priorities have changed. So I still do the odd little bit here and there, but I do a workout most days just to keep my health.
Right.
It's a different regime now. It's more of a sort of, you know, ticking over, just sort of looking, you know, just more like rehab training is really what I do now.
But I think that's almost a way to train anyway for anybody in a way, right? You take it to extremes in build-ups to competitions and stuff, but I think like for the most part, a lot of like if we call it strength and conditioning, I think a lot of it should be sort of rehab, and you just take it to a higher level as you go.
Yeah, and I think if I could do it all over again, I would have trained in a very different way. I would have done a lot less impact training, like running. I was doing a lot of road running, which obviously didn't help the knees. We didn't really know about it back then. I would have done a lot more rowing, and I would have done a lot more sort of assault bike, that sort of stuff, where you get all the benefits, but without that impact on the joints.
Right. Makes sense, but you don't know till you know, do you?
You
it's
don't
one of them.
know.
You
It's
don't
easy
know
with
till you know.
hindsight.
Yeah,
And of course, sports science now. With you know, when I was a young guy, and I always often joke about it with Neil. You know, Neil was the one who said to me, you know, after training, let's go to the pub. And you know, and I said, well, what are you talking about? He said, well, yeah, we need to take our edge off so we can go to sleep. You know, go across the road from the Budokan and be drinking 3 or 4 pints of beer.
It's an interesting thing. There's something to that. Like I don't drink, right? So I'm not the best person to speak. But it's like alcohol itself is obviously not good for the body. But I do think there is something to that. Like just chill off.
You know, he had a point because the adrenaline was flowing through your veins, right?
Yep.
So you know, you come off the mat at 9 p.m. having done all that training, 4 or 5 hours, and you're quite pumped and tired, but sort of that you know, you need to. So it did work, but I'm sure now that they've got something better than lying, right? You've got these protein shakes and you've got this and that. And, you know, it's a lot more scientific. You know, we're a bit more old school, but we did the best we could with what we knew back then.
No internet as well, right? So you can't exactly Google it and look up what's the best.
No Googling. It was all word of mouth.
But I do think there's something to that as well, like because you're genuinely sort of feeling what you feel, if that makes sense. It's easy nowadays to Google things and go, well, this says do X, Y, Z, but you're not putting a lot of thought to it. So like the truth's probably somewhere in the middle anyway, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
You're right. I mean, it was just a very different now. I think now all these, they're training as athletes now. It's not, you're not just a judoka. You know, you're thinking of your body and you know, and trying to get the most out of the machine. And I think I definitely was guilty of overtraining, 100%. And I think that's why I got injured so many times. You know, and if I could do it again, I would just sort of back off. You know, it's stupid. You know, you get a cold, you think, oh, I'll just go and sweat it off. You know, I'll go for a little run, sweat it off. You know, so now, of course, I know your body's it's either in a negative state or a positive state. If it's in a negative state, are you going to improve it by exercising? No, you're actually going to hamper your recovery and all this sort of stuff. But back then, it was like, no, you've got to push, keep pushing.
Walk it off. That was what I heard a lot as a kid.
Walk it off, toughen up and all this stuff, you know.
Yeah. But it's interesting, like when you come back, I'm assuming it's a long rehab process and the operation and whatnot. Did it ever get back to where you felt like, I'm good now with the knee?
I think each time you have one of those reconstructions, it's a minimum of a year before you can really.
Is it that long? Yeah.
You know, you could do a lot of things, but judo, you think about the stresses and strains on those joints. Trying to lift the guy on one leg with rotation, you know, it's got to be really strong. And the problem was when you get injured, of course, it's time out. And that's the thing, you know, you're better off sort of backing off a bit. And the advice I give is just listen, don't train through injuries, get straight onto it, don't go straight back too early and damage yourself again. Time out is you're falling back.
Right. And when you come back off of this like injury, it's obviously a big injury and stuff like that. You've got a silver medal already in your back pocket. Are you thinking next Olympic gold?
Well, yeah. I mean, I did go to the following Olympics in Atlanta, and that's exactly what I thought. I thought, right, okay, you won a silver medal. You were only weighing in at 90 kilos. Get the operation done. You can do it again, but I think I made the mistake I just thought, right, I've got to get bigger. I've got to get stronger. I did a huge amount of weights. I pushed my weight up, almost, sort of 94, 95. But with hindsight again, which is a wonderful thing, I lost a little bit of speed and agility, which was the winning element for me. And it, that just made that little bit of difference. You know, I started off, I felt okay, but then just a little bit, that's the difference at that level. It wasn't flowing for me in Atlanta. And as I said, the guy that I beat in the semi-finals, Pavel Nastula, in the semis in Barcelona, he went through and he won that event in Atlanta.
Right.
Yeah.
And how's that? Is that quite sore? Because you're like,
Well, yeah, we had two fights. I mean, I beat him in the semi-finals in Barcelona, and then we fought again in the European Championships in the final in Poland, where he won technically, but I mean, it was and the referees were doing everything to help him. You know, he was exhausted, had to carry him off the mat. But anyway, we had two great matches, and there was nothing in it between me and him. It was a great fight, and he actually went into MMA as well.
Did he?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. He's still sort of young enough, a little bit younger than me. He did. No, very clever, very shrewd fighter, very tactical.
Yeah. Because one of the things like with judo that I've noticed, like obviously it's very rough on the body and stuff, but also it's different to how I perceived it before. And I spoke to you about this before during sessions. It's like there's a lot of things where it's like just do it easy, Ollie. Just take tension out, Ollie. Don't be the stiff and it's a bit like
it's counterintuitive.
Just move your hand. Don't force it and whatever.
Yeah.
And like I feel like I've sparred with judo guys before, even black belts and stuff, but like in a grappling sense, right? We're not doing judo together. So you kind of try your own tricks and whatever, and you're not appreciating the judo aspect of it. Do you see what I mean? Whereas like I come and I've done classes with you at the Budokai and stuff, and you see people that do judo, and it is like, for lack of a better word, there's like a beauty to it, right? There's like an elegance.
It's very balletic.
Like,
I mean, when it throws, if you look at a judo throw and it's slowed down, it's really athletic movement, isn't it?
Yeah.
And one of the things that people don't realise with judo, when you're throwing someone, you have to throw yourself. So this is one of the mistakes a lot of people make. They think, oh, I can throw somebody in a safe way without committing myself. Well, actually, no. You have to commit your body to the movement. To throw somebody, get them off the ground and elevate them and get that rotation and get them flat on their back requires a lot of timing and technique and commitment and throw your body into it.
Well, you said that to me once, one of the early sessions we did it. It's called a throw, right? Like if you was throwing a ball, you related it to throwing a ball, throwing a punch. And it's like, it's almost, for me, too simple for my dumb brain to take on immediately. And you have to really think about it and sort of almost unthink, if you like.
Well, I think the reason for that is because people think about fighting. So they think about fighting, they're thinking about being strong. And it's like, I've got to feel I'm strong and have a lot of tension. And unfortunately, you've got that tension and it becomes a bit sort of isometric, you're blocking yourself. To throw somebody, you've got to close the gap.
Right.
You've got to get very close to that person. So if your arms are stiff, you're trying to keep the guy out, and you retain that stiffness, you can't get it close enough to throw the guy.
Right.
So it's counterintuitive. So no problem keeping the guy away, but when you come to throw somebody, you better make sure that you're relaxed and your arms are bending to be able to close the space.
Yeah. Well, you've definitely opened my eyes and blown my mind with some of the drills you've got me doing, and it's like I'm exhausted mentally after some of our sessions, by the way, even though the physical
I
side
know,
of it is,
I
go in the car and I'm driving away and I'm a bit like, wow,
well, see, but the thing is, a lot of guys, and this is where you're going to really benefit because you're prepared to do that. Some people just can't take the details. It's
Right.
like they just can't, you know, you have to simplify. Everyone learns in a different way. But fortunately, you're prepared to work and to do these drills. And, you know, it's about learning positions. And it's a bit like a domino effect. So if your first position is wrong, the second position is going to be wrong, the third. So it's putting, you know, joining those dots and trying to get all those elements in place, those components for the throw, and getting those positions right. And if you understand, rather than thinking about fighting, think about improving your positions and where you should be, and how do you. Judo is all about breaking of balance. Yeah. And if you don't break balance, then there's a good high probability you're going to be countered.
Yeah, well, it makes sense when you put it like that, and it's almost like I think people, well, not people, I can't speak for others, me, overthink things. When you say do something very simple, my brain goes this. Well, hang on, stop. Just do what Ray said. Do you know what I mean? It's how I've sort of come to it at the moment.
Yeah, I think it helps to, as long as you, it helps when you know what you're trying to do,
Right.
and then the way I like to teach is to try and simplify it and give an explanation for why you're doing that, but not overcomplicate it like I could. I don't want to. I want to make it as easy as possible for you to almost feel what I feel, and to try to give drills that are going to help you get there quicker.
Right, and I'll tell you one thing, it's an art form in itself being a good teacher, right? Like I've had...
you have to learn it as well.
It is, exactly. It's not good enough to just be good at judo and teach judo, is it? Do you know what I mean? Like I've been around, in my sort of combat life, if you like, I've been around 3 teachers that really come to me as, well, I said it then, coaches, but teachers, do you know what I mean? That are really good again. You're the 3rd one in there, so that's
glad to hear it.
You know,
Thank you
I'm grateful to
honoured.
have met you and stuff. But like, you know, it's like we've all been around people that are really sort of high level at what they do, and you ask them a question and they give you an answer, and they're not trying to be blunt or anything like that, but it's like they don't know what they're doing. They're just good at it, and they know what they're doing, they know how to do it, but to get the point across, it's almost like a subconscious, you see where I'm coming from? They don't know how to put it across.
I was like that when I was younger. I remember when I was a young guy, as I said, progressing through the ranks, and I was asked to take a class at the Budokai because I was winning medals. And I could just literally just say, okay, right guys, I'll show you my Uchimata. Boom. Okay, just get the sleeve, grab the lapel, jump in, bang, and over. And I could just do it over and over again. But I wasn't giving them what they needed because I was instinctively doing a lot of things, and just instinctively. So when I started to teach, especially when you're doing the private classes and you're really trying to help that person, I'd sort of break it down. I had to really almost deconstruct what do I actually do myself, and then break that down, and then convey that to the student.
Yeah, I imagine that's quite hard, right? Because where you've competed at such an elite level, you haven't been thinking about this stuff since you're probably, I don't know, 10, right?
You just do it. But I was always felt that all through my judo career and when I was doing my technical training, I was refining the techniques. So when we did the repetition, when you come in and out, that's called a repetition, and the practical thing of throwing, I always felt that it's about feeling it. It's not something you just look at. You've got to feel it. Right. You know, like I said to you recently, I want to show you how to get in these positions and feel you're in the right position. And then when you do it, you recognize when you try to come in and lift me up, for example, if you're in the wrong position, have you got under my center of gravity or not? You'll know. Yeah. I want you to feel it. And then you'll know you can self-correct. Yeah, I'm doing my job properly then, rather than just saying, oh, you just do this, you just do that. Yeah. There's definitely something, like we had a bit of a breakthrough yesterday in changing my level, right? Yeah. Without giving away any secrets, guys. There was can't tell you everything. Can't tell you everything. Like, calm down now. Pay the subscription. No. But like there's a certain sort of like sweet spot. You feel it, and we'd been drilling it, and I wasn't quite getting it, and there was a certain point. It was like, Jesus. He'd been telling me this for the last, I don't know, say 20 minutes. Suddenly it's just like a little... Yeah, I think I can akin it to boxing. Let's say, somebody throws a right hand, you've ducked under them, you've countered them. It's instinctive and you've just done it. It's happening. Yeah, you got to feel it. It's almost like, without sounding like a hippie, but it's happening to you, right? But you can only feel it by doing loads of repetitions on it. You can't just miraculously get it. It's from all the work you've done, and you've hours and hours and hours of repeating a good movement. Yeah. And it happens.
We'll have to do another video in like 10 years' time to see if I'm any less useless, to see if this theory works, or if I'm still like, how
I'll
when I
be
put my
very
foot right?
happy to do it in another 10
Well, hopefully
years'
in
time.
10 years we'll still be doing this.
Yeah, I mean, I just remember, going back to the Olympics, just to talk about this, what we're talking about there, I remember the first contest I had was against an Estonian world medalist, seriously nervous, and I threw him with my first attack, with Uchimata, my favourite technique, in 7 seconds for the full point, and it was all over for him. And it was just, it was like an out-of-body experience for me. It's almost like I was watching myself do that. It just happened so quickly. It was purely instinct and feel. And that only comes from many years of training and repetition. You can't just you can't be thinking, I'm going to do this, it's too late.
So you're behind, yeah.
It's got to be in your DNA.
Right. I've heard a lot of elite athletes speak like that. Like they almost feel like it happened to them versus like they were doing it and all that kind of stuff. It's interesting, the psyche and stuff like that. I don't know if anyone can ever get to the bottom of it. You just come up with theories, right? Like until you've experienced it yourself.
Yeah, it's almost like all of your senses are heightened. So your hearing, your smell, everything is heightened. That's the only way I can explain it. And it's like you're on autopilot.
Right, yeah, wow.
It's happening automatically.
Right.
I know that when I haven't had that every time, that's like a peak performance. And that's what you're trying to do when you're at the big events. You want that peak performance where you're mentally and physically in tune and it all comes together on that day. Doesn't always happen for every tournament, but it's an incredible feeling when it does happen.
And do you think you can train that in, or is that just an experience thing and sometimes it's there and sometimes it's not?
You can't just, you hope that it's going to come at those peak events because you're trying to do the same things. You've got a formula, you try to stick to that because it worked before. Doesn't always work that way, but I think if you've got to be honest with yourself about your strengths and weaknesses. We were talking before about, maybe you need to work on the mental side a bit more. Maybe you need to work on the physical side a bit more. Maybe, or the technical side, or the tactical side. You've got to be very honest with yourself.
Do you think that's where people let themselves down with the honesty side of things? They sort of kid themselves.
We all like to work on our strengths. You see it in the gyms, don't you? The guys who massive arms and legs are like fucking twigs,
Right.
Sorry, excuse me. Legs are like pins, right? A bit like mine, but it's we want to feel strong. We want to feel we're getting we're working on the weaknesses. But if you can work on your weaknesses, you make massive gains because and also your opponents they're studying you. They know your weaknesses.
Right.
If you're weak on the ground, they try and get you down on the ground. And vice versa.
Is judo one of them sports where it's a little bit sort of like, community might be the wrong word, but like everyone knows roughly who you're going to be competing against at the top levels?
The top level, because you're traveling to the same big tournaments.
Right.
And I used to like to do my homework on my opponents, so I used to know, is he right-handed, is he left-handed, what techniques, I knew my techniques, which ones I'm going to try to, am I going to try and get him into Newaza as soon as possible? Or, he's very strong in Newaza, I'll keep it standing. So you're always trying, I found it was very helpful to have some sort of a plan formulated before I fought my opponent.
Right, okay.
Other guys I knew on the judo team, British judo team, don't tell me who I'm fighting, I don't want to know. They just want to blank it out until they go out there and just randomly do what they're going to do.
Right, yeah, it's mad, isn't it?
So it's very individual.
Yeah, it is, yeah. And like I tell you, jumping around a little bit, like when you came back from your second Olympics in Atlanta, did you say that was it, you retired?
I retired after Atlanta, I think I sort of, what was I, 30, so I was 34 or whatever it was. It wasn't through the lack of not wanting to continue, it was really the injuries were right. Just like, you get to that point, getting through a training session, you think, oh my God, it's feeling.
Did you feel like you'd passed your peak at this point?
Not physically and mentally. I think it was just that it just became the training around injuries just became a real chore because it was sort of just becoming. How many times do you want to have an operation on your knee? It's like 0. So yeah. It's like that's very draining going through that.
Right. And was it a hard decision to make? Did you sort of go back and forth on it?
It is a tough one because that's all you know, and that was a very difficult thing to make that transition from going from an elite athlete, a competitor, high level, highest level you can get, and then suddenly you're a white belt in life, you've got to, what are you going to do?
Right.
What am I going to do now? You've got to reinvent yourself. And I was very fortunate that I went, obviously I was teaching, went into teaching, a bit of private personal training, and then eventually, of course, set up, my own academy. And because this is what I know. It's not like I couldn't sort of start a completely new career at that age. It's a bit too late. So I thought, well, I do know how to do this, and gradually, it wasn't an easy thing to do because I built up, didn't suddenly have an academy. I had to run school judo in schools and
actual schools with kids.
And we were hiring halls to run classes, putting the mats down, lifting them up, and all this sort of thing. So that was also very challenging and not an easy thing to do. But we're in here now, and it's all been worth it.
I was going to say, it's one of the best places around, right? And I'm just lucky it happens to be 15, 20 minutes from where I live, so I can come down.
Kind of you to say so.
I can come down and train with you multiple times a week, which is a benefit to me, obviously. And as I said, hopefully we're still training together 5-10 years on, and I'm slightly less of a novice in judo.
I'm just really pleased to help you on your journey with the judo, and I think that with your determination and your mindset, you will improve because you're prepared to put in the time in the right way and train intelligently and get those fundamentals. It's the same with any sport. Get the fundamentals and you can progress. People just go onto Instagram and I think, oh yeah, I want to do that, I want to do that. Well, hang on, you can't even tie your belt up yet. Come on, let's take it back and do it methodically and properly, which is what you're doing.
Well, I appreciate it. I'm staying humble now, but once I get that red belt, Ray, I'll be asking you about the dates for the Olympics and all sorts. Don't worry about that. We'll be on the path. Like, Ray, when do we go to Paris?
So we'll help you with all of your, and you know a lot of the techniques already, but you just don't know the Japanese names.
Right.
So I'm going to give you a bit of homework, and you'll learn the Japanese names. But I think that you obviously know a lot of the newaza, and now we're starting to develop your tachiwaza, your standing, and.
We'll see how it goes.
Well,
thank you very much. This has been
My
brilliant,
pleasure.
Ray. I appreciate
Really enjoyed it.
Before we finish,
Yes.
most important question I ask everyone at the end of these, and you said you like football before, so please let this go the right way. Which football team do you support?
I'd have to say Chelsea.
Oh, my man, top man. That wasn't planned either. We got it.
Because I spend a lot of time in Chelsea.
Yes.
I still teach at the Budokai, and I spend a lot of time around that area. So
Perfect.
Chelsea it is.
The correct answer for anyone watching that watches this. Oh, that's the perfect answer.
That wasn't rehearsed.
That wasn't rehearsed either, but for most people, I get a lot of people who obviously come from martial arts and they go, I don't really like I just bite in and go, Chelsea, well done, thank you very much.
Chelsea it is.
And that'll do, but I didn't need to plant it today, guys. But Ray, as I say, thank you very much.
My
I always
pleasure.
finish with the
Thank
fists
you.
up like this, mate. Squeeze the neck. Boom!